In this video, we're talking about Luffy's newest gear, Gear 5, the biggest game changer in One Piece so far, as we learn that Luffy is a literal god. This new gear has caused a lot of criticism from fans for its randomness and its tone. While the form might align with Luffy's character and the ending of the story especially, it feels unearned and out of nowhere at the same time. So let's take a deeper look at Gear 5 and see what's going wrong with it. To start, Gear 5 turns Luffy into a near limitless powerhouse. I mean, he doesn't even really struggle anymore in his fights. His greatest worry in recent fights has been simply maintaining Gear 5 form, and this lacks a lot of the tension that we're so used to and takes a lot of people off the edge of their seat. At this point in the story, Luffy is still a very young pirate who has been breezing through the Grand Line, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't had his struggles. Many of his fights have been uphill battles against much stronger opponents, and the opponents he's facing now would still be much stronger if he didn't have this Gear 5 form. Think of Rob Lucci. Rob Lucci put up a really good fight against Luffy, and he actually lost at first and had to get back up and continue fighting even through all the pain. I think things like this are what people really like about Luffy. It's the fact that he might fall but will always get up. With Gear 5, we're never going to see Luffy fall. He's always going to win, and even if he does get hit, his rubber is so extended that he just won't take any damage. Another thing that really bothers me about Gear 5 is the lack of personality that Luffy has now. One of Luffy's most compelling character traits is his free-spirited nature, but that's only to a certain extent, because the moment someone threatens one of his friends, he shifts to a very serious attitude in a moment. Let's take Whole Cake Island for example. He's going to go rescue Sanji, but it doesn't mean that he can't stop and have some fun. He eats away at a chocolate town and then fights one of the sweet General Crackers using a new Gear 4 form, Tank Man, where he just eats a bunch of food, gets really fat, and then launches his opponent off like a cannonball. But we see Luffy's attitude shift the moment that he gets in his fight with Sanji. He realizes that Sanji is in actual danger and really needs his help, and Luffy becomes ultra serious. I mean, he doesn't smile from that moment on until Sanji brings him his bento box eventually. It really shows how much Luffy cares about all of his friends and the extent that he is willing to go to save them. He does the same thing in Enies lobby too. In contrast, during Gear 5, rather than attacking Kaido decisively and trying to take him down as quickly as possible while his crew is in danger, he drags out the fight and turns Kaido into a play toy for him to fight with. He would never do this outside of Gear 5. Another issue with this Gear 5 transformation takes place in Wano. We spent a lot of Wano focused on Luffy mastering his Conqueror's Haki in order to beat Kaido. He spends a lot of time in the Udon prison just training his Haki. Yet in the Egghead arc and Wano, his Haki seems to be weaker. His punches don't land like they did before, and it's just kind of frustrating that this is happening since we're led to believe Luffy would overpower his new foes with his Haki, but he was forced to undergo a power-up that's so strong that he barely even needs his Haki anymore. I think the fact that he almost died and then gets revived by this new power really does take away from Luffy in that fight. Especially because I thought the first half of Luffy's fight on Onigashima was much more interesting and much more fun to watch than his second half of the fight. I think seeing Luffy struggle is something that we enjoy to see because we want to see him persevere and push forward. I do think this is an intentional move by Oda, but we need to talk about his Devil Fruit a little more before I can talk about what's going on with that. I believe Luffy's Devil Fruit was already awakened, but to talk about that we first need to talk about awakenings as a whole in Devil Fruits. Devil Fruits represent a user's dreams, and Haki represents a user's willpower. So in order to awaken a Devil Fruit, you must have big dreams or a big imagination in order to awaken it. It's something that doesn't make sense, but they had a big enough imagination to try it, and it worked. They had big enough dreams and aspirations that they were able to turn in houses into string and a mirror world into mochi. I think one of the best examples of a Devil Fruit awakening is actually one of my least favorite characters, Eustace Kid. And that's because we get to see him before he awakens his Devil Fruit and after he awakens his Devil Fruit. Before, he's able to use his magnet powers just to really pull in metal objects and shoot them out with magnetic repulsion, which seems like a very common application with a magnet power. But once he awakens it, he's able to create intricate things like faces and hands with them. He's even able to turn people into magnetic poles. These are all things that shouldn't happen, but I think the best example is how he's able to create a railgun just by using magnetic attraction. A railgun is a complicated system, and being able to pull it all together in one go just with magnetic attraction shouldn't be possible, but he's able to do it because he imagined he could do it, and he uses this to try to take down Shanks. Even though it doesn't work, I think it's a really good representation of how Devil Fruit Awakenings actually work, because it's all based on the user's imagination as anything becomes possible. So let's take a couple examples of when Luffy's Devil Fruit goes beyond the general application of a Gum Gum Fruit, and see if his Devil Fruit was already awakened. The first thing that comes to mind is Luffy's Gear 3 ability, where he's able to blow up his arm or other body parts much larger by blowing air into his thumb. Well, the thing is, Luffy doesn't have a hole in his thumb to blow air into, but he imagined that he could blow air into his thumb and enlarge the rest of his body, which shouldn't be possible, but he is imagining it. I think Gear 4 is also a very weird example where he's able to use his Haki to contain his pressurized body, allowing him to fly. In Gear 4 he's also able to create extra arms, which doesn't seem possible with a Gum Gum power as well. And we even see the cloud effect that's normally consistent with awakened Devil Fruits around Luffy in this newest gear. But I think the biggest example of Luffy's Devil Fruit being already awakened is his Red Rock attack. He is able to create fire out of thin air and use it as an attack. It's clearly an homage to his brother's Flame powers, but it has nothing to do with his Gum Gum abilities. This attack really shows that he's using the fullest extent of his imagination and just doing whatever he believes to be possible. In Gear 5 he definitely does do a lot of creative and imaginative things, but that's because he knows his Devil Fruit is awakened. I think if someone told him his Devil Fruit's been awakened since the time skip, he would have been doing all this stuff from the very beginning. Now we're going back to Luffy's Haki, and what I think's really going to happen later on in the story. Currently, Luffy's Gear 5 form is all white hair, white clothes, white everything. And we've heard this term Color of the Supreme King thrown around a couple times. And I think Luffy's going to cover himself in it, and it's actually going to color Luffy's body in like a coloring book, which would fit with the Toon Force and allow him to integrate Haki in a much newer way. I also believe Oda's using this Gear 5 transformation to throw us off, and show us how overwhelming it can be. And I think we're going to see his godly powers get overshadowed, literally, when it comes to Blackbeard's Darkness Fruit, which will envelop his Devil Fruit's Sun God powers into darkness. This will force Luffy to realize that his mythical powers can't be relied on, and he'll have to go back to what he knows, which is fighting with his entire willpower, or his Haki. And when Oda said one of his crewmates will die by the end of the series, I believe that's when we'll see this happen, as it could be an incredibly powerful scene to see someone who looks so unstoppable like Luffy be completely helpless in preventing the death of one of his fellow crew members, and it would also really build up how big of a threat Blackbeard can be to the One Piece world. Gear 5 introduced us to a new version of Luffy, but it came too fast, dropped the tension, and sidelined serious growth Luffy could have earned through his Haki mastery. I don't think this is the end of Luffy's character, and I think he's going to be returning to seriousness, as Gear 5 is going to be another stepping stone in Luffy's journey, where he's going to have to overcome this new power. Luffy's going to become the king of the pirates through his own willpower, and if you agree, please subscribe, and thank you for making it this far into the video. Have a nice day.